live in 3, 2. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of DiabloCast, your Diablo 3 podcast. As always, I am your host, Dennis Force Hamill, and with me, as always, we've got Kevin Sixen Carlino. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, everybody.
And finally, he's back. We've got CyberDragon. Tyler, how you doing today, man?
I'm good. It's not really morning where I am, but, you know.
Oh, well, that's
good morning
true.
to you, Kevin.
Well, it's not morning where I am either, but Kevin...
It's always morning where I am.
Kevin's finally awake, thank God. Oh, yeah, I'm pretty excited. We actually have a fair amount to talk about this week. Obviously, since we're in the middle of the beta, there's a whole lot going on. Lots of changes, lots of news, lots of updates, everything of the like. So today on the discussion table, we have got Diablo coming to the 360 and other consoles, most certainly now it seems. We've got the beta patch 4 that just went through. The return of the Book of Cain, some BlizzCon updates, discussion about skill swapping and unattuned runes, the fact that the public have started getting their beta invites, some discussion about a recently announced machinima tool, ooh, exciting, and then we will have a fairly in-depth discussion about randomization in the game. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into our first topic, which is going to be Diablo coming to consoles. All right, so we've known about this for a while. We've known that, you know, the plan has been, hey, let's get Diablo on the consoles. Let's do what we can. I mean, at least Blizzard has been talking about it for quite some time. Well, we just keep getting more and more updates and more discussion about it. Recently, we saw 2 major blue posts discussing, Diablo's eventual possible port to the consoles. The first of which stating that one of the reasons they're exploring the idea of a console version of Diablo 3 is because they feel like the controls and the style of the game lends itself to a console. Going into even further detail, saying that, you know, with some of the early experiments trying direct control with a 360-like analog controller with the 2 analog sticks, that they felt really comfortable, and even some people is going as far as to saying that it feels even better, the gameplay, than with a PC. Now, I will never venture to say something like that, because that's ridiculous. Personally, PC gaming is where it's at as far as I'm concerned as an individual. But, so, you know, we have this further discussion about console works and about how people are feeling really comfortable, at least with their current internal testing. I guess we'll start with you, Tyler. You know, we've talked about this in the past. I know we've certainly brought it up a bit in the past. How do you feel about the fact that, you know, we're getting closer and closer to this becoming a reality?
I'm okay with it going to console. It really doesn't bother me at all as a PC player. Like you said, I will definitely be playing it on the PC. For me, it's a point-and-click game, and to use any sort of controller for that is going to feel weird. But if other people want to and they can get it so it works streamlessly on the console, by all means, let them go to town.
Right. And we're actually going to just show some of the videos, because there was a YouTube video up kind of displaying how this may look on actually a PlayStation controller. Now, how about you, Kevin? How do you feel about it? And then again, I know this is something that we have discussed a bit in the past, but as we evidently get further and further, you know, basically confirmation that this is going to happen. This is eventually going to happen. I feel like they're just bringing it up too much for it not to actually come through. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, definitely, especially because they hired some Xbox and PS3 console specialists. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I've always felt like it was going to happen. I feel like Blizzard wouldn't have told the public that they were going to be experimenting with this if they didn't think it wasn't going to happen. I feel like that was just kind of their way of easing us into it.
Right.
You know, kind of like, yeah, we're just trying this out. Meanwhile, they've had plans for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really have a problem with it. I'm probably going to play it mostly on the PC. I did just buy an Xbox 360 just so I can get my Call of Duty Black Ops, or I guess not Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3 is coming out soon, and Gears of War 3. Lots of cool console games that I usually will never play, but I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to this kind of stuff, and I need to play Street Fighter here and there. But obviously, Diablo 3 is going to be in my entire life. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, I'm going to play it primarily on the PC. If people can get their Diablo fix through the console for whatever reason, I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because earlier in the week I did a thing with the guys at Machinima. They did a general chat, and we were talking about this very thing. And, you know, one of the things that I brought up there is I think it's important to realize that one of the good benefits from something like this is it's going to bring more people kind of into the Blizzard community. There are lots of people, and I myself have lots of friends who don't PC game because it's expensive. It's the expensive version of gaming. When you buy a console, and that's that. you buy the console once.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you can get a used console, used Xbox for like $100, $200, and then that's it. My gaming rig is over $1,000. I mean, that's something. The thing with PC gaming is that you always have to update it as well if you want to stay kind of on top of stuff like this. So.
Right. I was literally just talking about this with, I don't know, my uncle or something yesterday. I was just throwing this out there because I was letting him know, hey, Diablo 3 might be coming to the console. And the thing about this is that PC gaming companies don't have to worry about specs. They can just make their game. They can do whatever they want with it, and then they say, okay, these are the specs we require for you to play our game. Now you figure out how to get that. Whereas on consoles, you can't upgrade those for the most part. I mean, gaming companies on consoles have to say, okay, this is how we're going to make our game within these limitations of the console, which is why, I mean, it's a big difference between PC and consoles, So I'm kind of curious as to how Blizzard's going to do this, because I want to say that the Diablo 3 specs are pretty intensive, and I mean, I don't really know much about the internal workings of the Xbox and PS3, but I don't know. I'm hoping that they wouldn't have to scale anything down. I mean, I'm assuming that they would not compromise that kind of that stuff in order to make the game just to be playable on the Xbox.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that won't be a problem, especially given Blizzard's track record with being able to play on such a wide array of systems. I certainly imagine that they have the capabilities of not tuning it down. And actually, I've tried playing around with the different graphical settings in the game, and even on the lowest settings currently available in the beta, it still doesn't look bad. So I mean, I'm sure that'll be fine. I think one of the biggest things too about this is that, if anything, if we're looking at Blizzard titles, between all of the major games that they're currently, that are currently being actively played, StarCraft, Warcraft, and then upcoming very soon Diablo is the one that's going to fit the most on consoles. It's the one
Definitely.
It's the one that is going to make the most sense, without a doubt. So that kind of leads me to believe that, hey, this is cool. This is something that's actually going to work in comparison to anything else out there. So.
My question for right now is whether or not PC will be able to play with console, if you'll be able to party up and do PvP with each other, because I feel with the controls on a console, it's just going to be so different for PvP, and if that's going to make a difference on how well people perform in there.
More so than that, I'm going to say that it probably won't happen, just because that's very hard to kind of pull off. And Kevin, I know you were going to say something there too.
Yeah, I was pretty much just going to say the same thing. Not that it's necessarily hard to pull off.
They run on different networks, like Xbox Live and PlayStation. Very rarely are you seeing those things come together because they're different services and.
Oh, not only that, but I mean, in addition to the PC.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I don't see that happening. Not only that, but people might complain that there's different I don't know. In PvP, maybe you have an advantage by using a controller as opposed to a mouse.
No.
In which case,
mouse is always going to have a huge advantage.
I don't know.
If you
Call of Duty, I would much rather use a controller than a mouse.
Well, the thing is, and this is specifically true for shooters. Games that have tried to go cross-platform, they have to give console players kind of a handicap because the precision just isn't there. Yeah, I think the idea is that you can be much more precise with a mouse movement in terms of getting. Well, we're talking about shooters now, but this is going to relate to your ability to be precise with your skills in Diablo. Is that you don't have as much control when you have to. If you think about kind of moving a joystick in alternate directions to turn in a angle as opposed to just slightly moving your hand on the mouse, you know what I mean? At least that's been my experience. You can have a different experience. Maybe you are more comfortable playing on the controller, but I think that I know for a fact that PC games that have tried to do shooters on consoles as well, they basically have to give a little bit of slight auto target to the controller guys to help get headshots easier. But this is different though. This isn't headshot.
You're right.
You need precision in this game, but headshots aren't necessarily a matter of question there. So
yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know if you showed off this video, but it's pretty cool if you didn't play it.
I ran through it about 2 times there.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just a quick overview. It's a guy Maloo05. We're actually going to talk about him in a little bit when we talk about the machinima tool. He's one of the guys from my StarCraft 2 map making website, SC2 Mapster. He's done a lot. He kind of disappeared for a while, and then all of a sudden came back with a bunch of cool Diablo 3 stuff. But we'll talk about him more in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just showing it for a third time even, but that's pretty much it. I think that overall we'd say, hey, it's a good thing. There's no reason to be crazy elitist when it comes to PC gamers, as much as we love to be. It's not going to detract from my experience if this game comes onto consoles later down the road, so I'm not going to bitch about it. People will argue that that the game's been delayed because they've been putting workings into this, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe as Kevin just said, it's not the case. But whatever. I think I'll live, right? I think we'll all live. So, all right, let's move on to a discussion here of the recent patch I went through. This was a beta patch 4. And, well, there's not a lot to say. We just kind of wanted to make note of the fact that it happened. There was a number of kind of in-game... We've still been dealing with crashes and errors and stuff every now and then. I haven't had any huge issues recently, maybe because of this patch, though. But they basically just fixed some of the basic service crashes. And I think it's important to note that the entire point of the beta is for this very thing here. They are trying to work with kind of their infrastructure and any crash issues and any compatibility issues. That's what the beta is for. At least that's what Blizzard has told us, and that's why people have complained about the size of the beta content. It's we're not there to test the content so much as we are to test their servers and basically all of their hardware and everything like that. So yeah, there was a patch. Just wanted to talk about it quickly. So, was there anything to add to that, Kevin? I don't even know if there is anything to even add.
No. I mean, there's nothing really. I mean, I was just gonna add on to what you just kind of said, that we really aren't here to test the game and the content. We're pretty much just here to be testing, the launcher, the patcher, the installer, and stress testing their servers for the most part. I mean, yeah, we did find some bugs, and people are wondering, well, if Blizzard has 4 acts in the game, how are they going to release the game with completely bugless? Well, Blizzard's kind of saying we have a Q&A department that can test World of Warcraft games, MMORPGs, so they should be able to do it with an action RPG that's kind of relatively linear in the storyline.
Right. All right, so next we do have discussion of the fact that the Book of Cain has returned. That is right. I don't know if you guys were around when we initially talked about it, but the Book of Cain is something we ended up discussing around summertime, and it was something that kind of popped up on Amazon, and then it disappeared. Well, it looks like it's back. It's back on Amazon. I don't know if it's supposed to be here. It wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. But
yeah. This time around, they actually have some cool images of each of the pages. We can't zoom in enough to actually read anything, but they have kind of like glimpses of the different pages throughout the book. I mean, it looks pretty sweet. I mean, it's exactly what it is. It's Deckard Cain's journal. So there's like drawings in there, and there's notes, and it looks like old and Herodric-y.
it looks Herodric-y, he says. Tyler, you're excited for your pre-order?
I am. I pre-ordered this when it first came up for the one day it was on there, and then it got pulled down, and I was pretty upset about it. But it's back up, so I'm very excited.
You should have demanded a refund with 100% interest for the inconvenience. That's what I would have done.
Well, I think it's more expensive now than when I pre-ordered it, so hopefully I get up for cheaper than everybody else for my efforts of getting it the one day it was up there.
I don't think they definitely don't do that. That'd be awesome.
They're pretty sure they bump it back up and adjust it.
Why do you gotta crush my dreams like that?
It was just jokes. Good jokes.
But it does say it'll be released on November 25th.
Yeah, well, maybe they haven't heard about the pushback of Diablo 3 release then. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this could very well be as vague as release dates at freaking GameStop. You know what I mean? Maybe not. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, Book of Cain back up on Amazon. So head on over and pre-order it like Tyler did if you want.
I just wanted to throw this in. I did kind of laugh because they have Deckard Cain listed as the author, and then in the About the Author section, they talk about Deckard Cain.
Really?
So he's legitimately the author of the book.
That's great. Is it Michael Gove or is it Deckard Cain? That's the question.
No, Deckard Cain.
Yeah.
And they even have a little bit about Deckard Cain in the About the Author section.
Oh, if I could buy a narrated version, though, that would be amazing.
Audiobook?
Yeah.
There you go,
Absolutely.
by Michael Goff.
Absolutely. All right, so we do have some Blizzard site updates, actually BlizzCon updates to be more exact. If you go ahead and head on over to the Blizzard community site, the Diablo 3 community site, you'll see a recent post that went up about a BlizzCon media section update. Basically, they just added some pictures and stuff like that from BlizzCon, looking at the costume contest, and we got some wallpaper images up there as well.
Hey, not just from BlizzCon, from every single BlizzCon, as well as the Worldwide Invitationals.
Oh, wow. So that's what I said, though. I said from BlizzCons. I put an S in there. I think we're
Oh,
all
yeah.
set. All right, so
Slut.
and then with this in reference specifically to this upcoming BlizzCon, which actually is a little bit less than a month away right now. I'm stoked about that. But we had some news that the Foo Fighters are going to be kind of our halftime act there. They will be the musical performance, and this is actually pretty cool because usually I kind of toss aside any music that comes in these type of events, any sort of gaming events. But I actually really like the Foo Fighters, and of course David Grohl being known for his role in Nirvana as well. You really can't shoo aside any band that he's in, and I think the Foo Fighters are a great band, and I'm excited. I think last year was it Tenacious D that took place last year.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I think they're hilarious, but I can't say that I legitimately sit down and would listen to their music. But the Foo Fighters are someone who I would. So.
And Dave Grohl actually played the drums for them last
year.
year. BlizzCon, and that's kind of how he got into this.
Oh,
role
really?
now.
That's funny. That's great.
Yeah, I don't see why they don't just like get Lil Wayne and T-Pain.
Oh, Jesus.
Shut
Kevin.
up.
You-
No, I'm very excited for Foo Fighters. Foo Fighters is easily my top 5 favorite band. So when I
Really?
saw
Wow.
I was very excited. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as to call my top 5. Not that any of this is relevant or really matters, but I definitely like them a lot. They're definitely very talented musicians. So, anyways, it'll be cool. Anyone going to BlizzCon will be able to see this, and I'm pretty certain as well. If you guys won't be attending BlizzCon, but you attend the virtual ticket, that this show would be available when you when you purchase the virtual ticket.
I think they're using that as one of the selling points with the virtual ticket.
Right.
You get a live stream of the concert. And before we move on, just to throw this in there as well, the Sons of the Storm are going to be returning for their own panel. So you can go get your stuff signed. Sons of the Storm, if you guys don't know, they are kind of Blizzard's little mini group of elite artists there, like Sammy and Chris Metzen, a couple other people, Rain Man, Thammer, a couple others. Yeah. So, and then the media section updated. So, okay, we can move on.
Sure, yeah, and actually, now that you mentioned that, I think one of the biggest drawing points to Blizzard games for me has always been kind of the art behind it and the artist. And I visited the Sons of the Storm website a few times actually to pick up art pieces for various projects that various videos that I've worked on, and it's phenomenal. You guys, if you don't know, if you like Blizzard art or you like the artists that work behind Blizzard games, head on over to sonsofthestorm.com and you can search by the artist there, and you can take a look at the kind of all the different work that they've kind of put in over the years. Basically, it's not everything, but kind of like highlighted pieces of their artwork. So,
yeah. So make sure you guys go like their Facebook page, because a certain someone spent hours moving every single image of their gallery over to the Facebook page.
wow, sounds like you got gypped. Did you get anything for that?
Pat on the back.
That's not worth it. All right. Next up, we're going to be moving into a discussion of skill swapping and unattuned runes. Now, these are both kind of, big hot topics of debate, at least things that people have been talking about for quite a while. Now, I know that we have talked about unattuned runes a bit, and I've voiced my opinion, and, it's not personally, for me, I don't think it's the best system in the world. It's something I'll live with, and any kind of complaints that I've voiced in the past, it's not just me bitching. I'm just trying to get a point out there. The unattuned system, if it goes through, it'll be fine. I'll live. Everyone will be okay, it's not my ideal situation, but you know what? If that's what Blizzard wants to do with the game, then by all means, go ahead. And then in addition to that, there's a mention of skill swapping. And I'll just go ahead and read the Bash Shock Blue post really quickly. So first, in reference to unattuned runes, he's saying that we have no idea how the unattuned system is going to work or if it'll end up working at all. We're trying out some different options, but we're not likely to reveal much until we're certain. Maybe it'll be something we feel comfortable discussing at BlizzCon, maybe not. So again, they're still working with the unattuned system. They're testing it internally. It's obviously not going to be in the beta because runes aren't even in the beta. And yeah, right. Hopefully at BlizzCon we get an update as to where the runestone system is, but who knows if they'll be done by then. And then the second half of the blue post discussion discussing, he's saying on a slightly related note, we're playing around with having skill swapping locked to being in town only. He's saying we're not sold on it, but it could appear sometime in a beta patch, so just giving us a heads up. He just wants us to be aware that something they're trying out, and it may not be a permanent solution. So to the skill swapping, this is kind of an answer to the complaint of people being able to swap skills on the fly. We'll start with you, Tyler, and then we'll ask you as well, Kevin. Tyler, through playing with the beta, have you found that this is something that maybe is undesirable? I mean, it's obviously convenient, but would you prefer it if we were kind of locked into our skills while in combat at least, and we could only switch in town like their suggestion here, or do you like it the way it currently is?
I like it the way it currently is. I actually wrote this up in my first beta article that, a lot of people were concerned that you'd be able to just swap out your runes for any situation that you run into, or I guess skills, and be able to kind of play that way. And really from playing through the beta, and it's just so quick paced that I never found myself doing that. I never came up to, like a champion or an elite and switch, to a single target attack and use that and then go back to like an AoE. I chose the skills that I wanted to use that I found worked well in combination and just stuck with those.
I think
so, I don't know if it's just people not getting a chance to play it and thinking how quick and easy you can swap out without, while fighting these monsters, but for me it just wasn't a big deal. So to me it's just unnecessary.
I would say that I think the concern would be more if we're looking at, let's just go way down the road and we're thinking about hardcore characters playing in Inferno difficulty. This is, every fight matters and every fight's considered difficult. I think in that situation, it could very well be the case that people would be constantly swapping out based on what types of mobs they're coming into. And I guess maybe here they're saying, well, if we have that option, then we'll do it, but it's going to be a huge pain in the ass. Whereas if they have to go back to town, they're less liable to do it in between packs. I know that right now in the beta, it's so freaking easy. It doesn't really matter what we're using, right? But I think that maybe at that point it could be an issue, and maybe that's where some of the complaints are coming from.
I was actually going to take that line of reasoning and go the complete opposite route. In the beta, it's easy because it's normal. Once we hit Inferno mode, it's probably going to be ridiculously hard to run out of the way of monsters, swap skills, and then continue fighting without having to worry about dying, right. Especially when you're in hardcore. When you're in hardcore, you're probably going to want to go back to town to switch anyway. Although, I don't like the idea of having to run to town just to switch, because at that point, the only thing that's stopping me is that I have to run to a safe corner to switch, so I can use my Stone of Recall, switch real quick, jump back in my portal, and then continue on my way. Why make me waste an extra 10 seconds when I could just do it in 5?
I don't know.
It seems like it's just making me waste time to waste time.
Right.
At that point.
Right.
There's because that's all it's doing is making me waste time.
And that's a good point, because it is going to be more difficult to avoid monsters when we're talking about those difficulties, and obviously more concerning in hardcore where your death is a huge deal. Maybe people don't realize, but as you work your way up in difficulties, it's not only that the monsters become they have a larger health pool, they deal more damage, they're kind of doing more things, a little more versatile maybe, having to deal with more enchants. The other thing too is they're more aggressive and they're faster.
Smarter.
So it will be difficult. It will be difficult to actually avoid combat, much more so than it is if we're breezing through normal and I can slap a monster upside the head and his buddy doesn't even look at me. In the later
right.
difficulties, they're aggressive and they're constantly chasing after you. So. That's true. That is a good point, Kevin. I don't know. It's interesting. Because do they want to try to deal with and kind of give in to the complaints about being able to easily swap out, or would they prefer just to go with their initial plan was, hey, we want people to be able to do what they want when they want and constantly switch out. I mean, this is a pretty new thing, especially in an RPG, because every RPG I've played in the past, there's always been some sort of a skill system that requires you to invest gold, go to a certain NPC to be able to change your current specialization. In fact, many, there have been many Diablo as well. At one point, you cannot switch your skills at any point. They added respecking eventually, but it's interesting because this is kind of treading new grounds. At least I think personally, for games that I've played, there could very well be games out there that do something exactly like this. I just haven't played them. So,
and something I'm afraid that they might do is introduce, or I suppose reintroduce, the respec option and make you have to pay for that. I would kind of really be angry with that. I mean, they already have it in place for the followers right now. It's 750 gold. What is 750 gold to me when I'm making 5, 6, 7, 13,000 in a gold run just on the first third of Act 1. So 750 gold is nothing. To me, that's just making me return to town to respec my follower. I should personally, I think followers should have infinite and free hot swapping respecs just like our characters do. Now, if they put that kind of restriction on characters just so they can cap or limit the ability to hot swap skills in Sanctuary, I think that would be a problem, because again, I'd have the same feeling. Great, now I got to run to town and talk to this vendor to respec my character for 750 gold. I just made 750 gold in 10 seconds. Why do I need to do this? Just let it be free, because 750 gold to me is nothing. And figure out another way to do a gold dump. And I know that this is kind of a little bit off topic, but since I'm going through this route, I just suggested that maybe we go with account-wide shared followers. And this was one of my reasoning, because let us have hot swapping follower skills and just let this follower be the same throughout all my characters. That solves the problem with, hey, I need to have different skill sets for each of my characters, because now we can just hot swap them whenever we need. And something else I thought was, hey, what if we do skill and item sets? Now you can save a set of skills, and you can save a set of items on that character, and you pay X thousand for each set, similar to our stash. And if you want more sets, they progressively get more expensive. So now we don't have to worry. Now we have a better gold dump in place, because 750 gold again is nothing. And we can make each set a little bit more expensive, so now we have more of a reason to want to spend money on our follower.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like that could definitely work, and it's interesting that I think it's interesting that they've even brought up the fact that they're considering doing that and allowing making it so that you have to go back to town, just going back to the main point, because it seems like it's a far cry from everything that we've heard from them thus far. You know what I mean? All of their plans for the skill system and how they wanted it to be a certain way. So
Bashiak also did mention that there's currently no concept of in and out of combat right now, and I mean, I guess that if Blizzard really had to do something, I would personally not mind having to wait a little bit extra longer for them to add a combat system into the game, just so that way, instead of forcing me to go to town and waste the extra 10-15 seconds, they can say, okay, this character is no longer in combat, let's give them the ability to swap skills. I think I'd be okay with that, just because, I mean, I guess I can say I've done it a couple times, just swap skills real quick while I'm in the middle of fighting monsters, just because you can. But I mean, again, this is normal, so I mean, normal difficulty, not normal like standard. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this past normal, or even in the later parts of normal. So I mean, if they had the ability to have a combat state system, I don't know. I think that would probably be, a nice solution right down the middle.
I've just never understood people who are going on the combat situation for the idea, though, because it's Diablo. Like, when are you not in combat? Like, you take 2 more steps and you're back in combat.
Right.
By the time you clear a room, you're running into more monsters to kill. There's just no stopping point.
Well, I guess the idea is, people don't want you to be able to, you walk up and engage a monster, and then you're like, oh crap, I need this spell for this specific monster, so let me have to open up my skill pane and switch it out. You don't have to, but that's the option. I mean, I'm not a programmer. I certainly have no idea how long it would take to implement a combat system, especially if they did a full-fledged ones, like, does someone have aggro on me? Is there a monster, even if he's 2 rooms over, who's, locked on to me? Just because I ran away, I'm still locked in combat. But it may be even some sort of a simplistic type of combat system, whereas, the player here in question has not casted or used a skill in the past 10 seconds. You can now swap out skills.
I mean, I guess if you're really quick enough to swap out your skills in the middle of fighting just to change your tactics for one monster, just to switch it back afterwards, if you're skilled enough to do that, I say let them take the advantage. But for me, it just wasn't a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a waste of time. It's not like these guys are all that strong, and even when they are that strong, we'll be that strong too. And the whole point of having 6 skills is so that way you don't have to focus on one. So now you have 6 viable skills, and you have to make a potential build out of those 6. So if one of your skills don't work, I'm sure the other 5 probably will. So I mean, I personally won't waste the time to swap skills. I mean, the only time I did that was when I was in the Leoric battle, and I think I swapped out like Frost Nova for something that actually did damage, or for one of the armors, just because. I mean, I was sitting there waiting. I mean, otherwise, I would really never do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll certainly have to wait and see what they eventually end up deciding to do. And as mentioned from the get-go, they're not sold on it yet. You know, they don't know for sure if this going back to town to respec is something that's actually going to go through. So we'll see if through testing and iteration, if they actually decide to do this or not, or if they just decide to keep it the way it is. But certainly an interesting matter of debate and discussion. So I'm glad we had this talk, guys. Thank you. All right. So next up, we'll be making note of the fact that, you know, people in the public have finally started to get their beta keys. Now, make sure you check your Battle.net accounts. Be wary of scam emails and all that sort of jazz. But yes, public figures, public people, whoever you guys who are listening right now in the community, you do have a chance to get in now through the beta opt-in. They finally started sending out and activating accounts for that. We're going to reiterate once again, if you receive an email that says you're in the beta, you will never be asked to share your information. You will never be asked to click on a link. An email like that is likely a scam. If you get something and it says you're in the beta, close out of that damn email, go straight to Battle.net, log into your account, and you'll be able to find out there. If you can download the client, then that means you're in. But the good news is that, you know, those invites and accounts are being activated for people who went through the beta opt-in, so that means you guys now have a chance. I know, you know, we started off with that friends and family crap, and then they said that the closed beta began, and I guess technically it did, but only press was in for at least a few days. It may have even been a week. But now,
Well, I mean, that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean
that allowed us to kind of prep early.
Yeah, but I mean that's something.
Sorry, guys.
I just think there was so much hoopla that went on around this whole beta thing, especially
that's for sure.
friends and family with no NDA, and then them saying the closed beta starts, but only the press being in, and then they finally start actually sending out keys to people. But whatever, that's just how it went. That's how things went down. So look forward to possibly getting in any waves that may go out between now and the end of beta. And actually, you know, with the extension of the release, I'm pretty sure we talked about this last podcast. I don't even remember. There's been so much going on. But with the fact that the release date is getting pushed back to 2012, this does mean an extended beta as well. So this means people have more and more of a chance. It's not likely that they'll be adding more content. Alas, I wish they did, but even though they won't be adding more content, a longer beta means more chance for people to get in, because people will stop playing. People will stop playing.
Right.
There's only so much content. I mean, you know, a big driving factor for me personally is I'm just trying to get everything out there for people, and that's what's keeping me constantly playing, trying to make new videos and everything like that, just so people who aren't in or never get the chance to get in can at least see it. But I would say your average person, after a week of playing, probably going to stop. But the good thing is that means that, you know, as the numbers go down, as the attrition rate grows, then they're going to start sending out more keys. So there you go. Nothing to add, guys?
No, nothing really. I mean, yeah, it's the whole thing about the whole churn rate that they were telling us about at the press event.
Right.
Basically, it all depends on how many people continue playing the game. And since there's little to no content to really play here, I mean, what is it, 5 hours worth of gameplay total? I mean, if you play all 5 characters. So, I mean, most people aren't going to bother maxing out all characters to 13. They're not going to bother maxing out the artisan to 4 4/5. They're not going to bother maxing out.
And there's no point, by the way.
Followers.
If you're in the beta and you try to do it, don't bother, because you can't.
Yeah.
You can't wear the gear past Journeyman. In fact, most of the Journeyman gear you can't even wear. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to see if I could figure out the max level was until I got to 4 4/5, and it tells me that I need nightmare crafting material. Yeah. So I'm like, oh well, that's great.
I did it, and I was like, great. I just wasted a crap ton of gold and materials, and I get jack squat for it. So
yeah.
Oh, well, I have not done it, so I'm glad I didn't waste my time.
Yeah, don't bother. Yeah. It's stupid. All right. So next up, we're actually going to talk about something that I'm really excited about, and our next 2 topics are going to be something that we kind of go into a little bit of depth about. This one maybe not so much, but anyways, that's enough beating around the bush. Let's get to the point. We're talking about the Machinima tool. And this was from your buddy, right, Kevin? This is someone that Malus or Malu 5 or whatever
from Mapster. Yeah.
Yeah. So he released a Machinima tool, and what's a Machinima tool? Force, you're talking about Machinima, that company that you kind of do work with? No. Machinima is basically the act of turning in-game visuals into a type of movie. And you do this through using various tools that allow you to kind of work with the camera and give you various different awesome looking camera angles and all sorts of things. Well, Malou has shown us the machinima tool that he's done a lot of work for World of Warcraft. And I don't know if you guys have never seen it, just look up World of Warcraft machinima. There's just some fantastic, again, it's using in-game assets to make a story and a little movie, mini clips, and you can do some really cool things. And seeing this got me so pumped up. I don't know if it was the Deus Ex soundtrack that did it, or if it was just the visuals, but I got so pumped up because I think that this stuff is awesome, and I like being able to make stories, or the fact that people can even make stories within the games that we love and the games that we play. And this is something that I would just love to do. I would absolutely love to do it. I know the time investment would be crazy, though. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just excited to see what people come up with. Once this asset does go live and Malou finishes the work on it, people will be able to do kind of what you're seeing here, little panoramic views, and then you just make a movie, you make a story. So what about you guys? Are you excited, Tyler? Do you know much about machinima? Are you looking forward to what could possibly come of this?
I never do any myself because you said the time investment and everything is just too much for me, but I do enjoy watching other people's. There are definitely some creative people out there that put together some great videos, and I look forward to seeing what people can do with Diablo.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Kevin? You know the guy who's worked on this. How do you feel about the kind of the potential that this is going to bring here?
I'm actually really psyched about it. I'm kind of a little upset that Blizzard isn't really allowing modding and whatnot because there's so much potential there. But I think this is going to be awesome. I'm really wondering what people can do for this because, again, now keep in mind I also run the StarCraft 2 map making website, so I do a lot with the whole modding side of thing on StarCraft 2. I'm really psyched to see what people are going to come up with this. I know he's been working on the World of Warcraft one for quite some time, and basically that was what he did. He just ported the World of Warcraft one to Diablo 3, and a lot of the stuff that I guess was just easily portable over for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm psyched. I can't wait for people to start doing more stuff like this. I'm really pumped.
Right. And like I said, I think that for me personally, the coolest thing is, because I played World of Warcraft for quite a while. I did. I played quite a bit of it, and it was really cool to see this game that I was so involved in and immersed with, and see these characters come to life in some sort of a mini movie. And I think that the Diablo universe has got a lot of really cool potentials for some very cool stories. Yeah, people make up these characters within the Diablo universe, and then they have everything that goes on with it. And it's just, I don't know, I'm excited about it. You can probably hear the nerd excitement in my voice, the nerdgasm, if you will. But it's just going to be awesome. And yeah, it's important to note that this isn't up yet. This isn't live yet. It's something that he is working on. But yeah, God, I can't wait till this happens.
From what I saw, we're going to be able to use most, if not all, of the World of Warcraft machinima tool features. So changing the color of the water, changing the color of everything in the sky, the cloud density, crazy stuff, crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of stuff that they've done with the World of Warcraft machinima tool, and it's very likely that at least some level of that same type of customization will be available in the Diablo 3 machinima tool. So let's keep our fingers crossed that Malou keeps up the good work. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that he accepts donations, and someone who does this much for the community, and it really does do a lot for the community. At BlizzCons they've got official machinima contests, for God's sakes. And it'll be interesting if they do allow Diablo or not, because technically this isn't supposed to be allowed based under our current understanding, whereas it is for World of Warcraft because they do allow that modding. So.
I really don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah.
I'm praying that Blizzard kind of takes a Diablo 2 stance on it. So basically, modding isn't supported, but if you can, more power to you. I had been reading over a couple interviews from 2009 where Kevin Martins and Leonard Boyarsky were both talking about how they played a bunch of Diablo 2 mods, how they played Brother Laz's Median XL mod. We actually did an interview with him quite some time ago from Magistrate, but they took inspiration from him, and they had no idea how he did some of the things he did. They went and talked to the old artists, and the artists had no idea what he did, how he did what he did, and they were blown away by the work he did on Diablo 2 and how he was able to keep the Diablo 2 feeling to the game. So I'm really hoping that Blizzard allows us to make mods for Diablo 3. Now, I'm not talking about UI modifications or hacks, obviously. I'm talking about just adding new content to the game. So I mean, just stuff for fun. I mean, it'll add longevity to the game's lifespan by, tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, we're excited. That's all. That's the summarization. We're definitely excited about this. All right. So now we're going to be moving into what's going to be pretty much our large topic here. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about randomization in Diablo 3. Now, we all know that the randomization is, what Diablo is all about. Randomized gear, randomized dungeons, randomized zones. Maybe not so much in Diablo 3. And there's been a lot of questions concerning what's been shown, what's been showcased thus far in the beta, and maybe people saying, for lack of better words, total lack of randomization. Well, response from Bashiok being, the very beginning of the game is extremely linear and guided on purpose. We want anyone and everyone to be able to sit down and begin playing and enjoying the game. That means there's a lot of thought into a gentle, guided experience from the beginning of the game, but in all reality, if you sit down and play Diablo 2, you'll see the difficulty and linearity from the beginning of the game is pretty much the same. That's actually, that sentence right there has kind of been a little topic of debate. But anyways, the point is that the game opens up a lot more later in Act 1 and especially in Act 2. The vast majority of you guys are going to breeze through normal, and that's okay because most of the real character building and customization doesn't even begin until Nightmare. So, despite what he said about Diablo 2 and it being as linear as the beginning of Diablo 3, we don't even really need to talk too much about that. Just the randomization that's available in the game currently. And we're not mentioning specifically gear because gear has, there's just a set of parameters and you have randomization in between those parameters for each gear piece. And then there's random attributes that's clearly randomized as well as entailed by random attributes. But specifically looking at the level design and how randomization is taking place with that. Now, I did a video on this earlier in the week, just showcasing the level randomization in the game. Now, we've got two major areas to consider. We'll call them zones and then dungeons. So you've got your basic outdoor zone areas, and then also within the zones, I'm also encompassing the idea of any story-driven areas. It seems like a lot of the outside, at least currently, a lot of the outdoors and the story-driven indoor areas are all fairly static. There's a general path, and there's maybe those pockets of randomization, but the general path is static, the general layout is static. But when it comes to the dungeons, that's where we've been seeing the heaviest amount of randomization, and in the fact that we've got kind of all these different blocks and they're randomly pieced together. You've got, I guess we can call them room segments, and various types of those are just spotted together randomly to make up a level of a dungeon. Specifically in the beta, we're looking at Cathedral levels 1, 2, and 4. Level 3 is pretty static, but as mentioned prior, that's because it's story driven. That's where you find the Templar. There's a little bit of randomization at the end of Cathedral level 3, but most of it's all static. So that's kind of generally what we're looking at. Tyler, how playing through the beta, I'm sure you've played a few times, multiple characters. How did you feel that the randomization was overall?
Overall, I enjoyed it. It's like you said, the outside area is pretty much standard, but it's still big. It's not like you just walk down a path. It's not a hallway that you follow down. It's a big area that you can go and explore if you want to. But if you know where you're going, you can go straight down the path and find where you need to be. But as you said, the dungeons is where the randomization's at. And I remember the first time I played through, I don't know where anything is. I'm kind of exploring, figuring everything out. And then I played the second time, and I was doing the exact same thing. I didn't know where to go. Once I got into the cathedral, I was still walking around, and it feels just like Diablo 2 did with that. And that's what I'm excited about, is you go into the same area, but it plays completely different than the time before.
Right. And, even as you mentioned, even with the outdoors, yes, there's that set path. And as long as you shoot in kind of the general direction and you know which way you're going, then you're all set. But even with that, there's all the randomized aspects of it around that set path. And actually, I'm showcasing the video right now, and I'm just going to pause once all three come up, just so people can kind of take a quick look here, specifically looking at the Weeping Hollow. Did you make much note of this? Did you do much exploring? Because, looking at the video momentarily, you can see even the path winds differently, but all around it, there's these textured areas, and you can see that they're different from playthrough to playthrough. This is showcasing 3 different playthroughs, and there's different texture. In fact, there's different dungeons even. In playthrough 2, right in the middle of the Weeping Hollow, there was a little dungeon that wasn't there on any of the other playthroughs. Did you personally get much experience with any of that?
I was actually just going to comment. I am playing through as a barbarian right now, and I'm in that exact same area, and I found the Den of the Fallen, which is allude back to the Den of Evil from Diablo 2. And it's the first time I ran into it. I've played the game through 5 times now, and it's the first time I've gotten that dungeon. And I went in there, and I enjoyed it, and it's a nice little pocket of randomization where I could have skipped it easily, gone straight through to the quest, but went in there and had a good time and fought the zombies at the end of the den, just like in Diablo 2. So right. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, people have said that it's cool that they have these random dungeons, but they're pretty small. I think it's also important to realize that, again, this is it's
normal.
Yeah, it's normal. It's the first act. They're going to be small. I think once we progress throughout in the later acts and different difficulties, that these random dungeons will actually be a lot more in depth. So
I actually like that they're really small, because one of the problems that they had with Diablo 2 is they had these randomized dungeons as well, but they were so big that it wasn't worth your time going in them. And you would go down, you'd fight the one champion that was down there, get the one blue or possibly yellow that you got, and then you would leave. And then the next time you saw one, you'd be like, that was 20 minutes, and it really got me nowhere, where I could just kill a bunch of these monsters and get the same loot. So I actually enjoy that they're really short, because it gives me reason to go down there. Like, I know I'm not going to have to invest a lot of time, but I still get to explore this extra content.
Kind of honing back to Diablo 2, I don't really think Diablo 2 is as random. From my understanding and from what I remember, for Diablo 2, yes, they used random maps. So basically, they had maybe a set of 5 or 6 standard maps, and then every time you entered the game would just pull one map for each area. So the area itself wasn't specifically random, but the number of the specific area you might have gone to was random. And I guess I'm having a hard time describing this. So they had set maps done. So if I wanted to, I could go and document each of the 5 maps for each potential area. And then each game they randomly selected one of those set maps to be used for the area. So the entire area itself was not constructed randomly. It was just pulled from a random selection of things that were already statically created. So in Diablo 3, it uses a different type of randomization, and Dennis was talking about this in his video. They build each area based on pieces, and they build each area randomly. Now, I'm kind of worried that eventually their algorithm... it depends on how random their algorithm is. I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say on that. I mean, it all depends on how good their algorithm for randomly generating areas is.
I certainly, I'm going to give them faith in that regard. But I mean, yeah. And that is specifically that randomization that we're talking about at the moment, at least, is specifically, again, looking at those outdoor areas. If we take a trip inside into the actual heavy dungeons themselves, and again, the one that we're looking at specifically in Diablo 3 beta right now is Cathedral Level 4. And I'm going to take a quick pause here right on the screens for you guys at home to see. This is just from 2 different playthroughs, and you can see that these dungeons, they look completely different. We've got a start area for playthrough 2, which is kind of central, as opposed to playthrough 1. The start area was on the kind of the far north right position of the map. But not only that, but all these rooms, these different types of room segments, they're laid out, they're laid together completely differently as well. And then besides just the physical look of the rooms, these rooms they're going to have different monsters in every time. They could be different types of enchanted monsters, mini bosses, all sorts of things. You don't know where the chests are going to be. I mean, there's a hefty amount of randomization that's going into these dungeons. And again, this is the first act and the first difficulty. This is not nearly resemblant of what we're going to be seeing in later difficulties, where we're expecting the dungeons to be a lot larger, with a lot more random rooms placed together and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, I personally, in the playthrough, I felt, I felt like it was pretty damn random. Especially I was trying to do the speed runs, and it was giving me a headache and a
I know.
half.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I can beat your run, and I have no idea. Yeah, basically, I just got to get lucky and hit all the doors on my first.
That's what
you know?
it is, yeah. And actually, we asked Tyler, but how about you, Kevin? When you've been playing through the beta, how have you felt in the dungeons, or if you did any exploring outside, how the game felt differently from playthrough to playthrough?
No, I definitely agree with that. And in addition to finding the Den of the Fallen, I found that twice, I think, now. And God, I've played like 30, 40 hours of the beta between all my classes total. And I've only found this place twice now. I also found something else, like the cave under the well or something like that. Just some, I mean, I like that there are random different places. It makes each playthrough experience completely different, which I definitely do like about that. It adds replayability to the game, that's for sure. I don't know, some things I kind of wish like some random events were just permanent, like always there. For example, the Jar of Souls. I think by far that's one of the coolest events thus far in the beta. I mean, it's kind of like a horde mode, except it only lasts a minute. So they send waves and waves of skeletons at you, and they just tell you, "Hey, survive," and you get some cool experience. You get gold,
Yeah.
whatever drops. So I mean, it's pretty sweet. But otherwise, yeah, I have noticed that. I mean, the randomization in the game is definitely pretty damn random. I mean, I don't really know how else to describe that. I mean, the randomization's random. So they're definitely doing a good job. That's for sure. Whether or not I like it, I guess that could be debated because I like being able to memorize the maps in Diablo 2, so I can do speed runs. But whatever.
Yeah, and it's I found as well with stuff like that those randomized events. They're not in everyone, but actually between the Jar of Souls, there was also the Ghostly Woman randomized event, and that's something that I was seeing come up when the Jar of Souls didn't, basically.
Yeah, and I actually haven't gotten any of those.
Really?
So I'm a little salty now.
Well, but those events are going within the crypts. So maybe if you find the right crypt and you don't check out the other two, you probably just miss it.
Yeah, there's sometimes
probably.
Yeah.
where I didn't find it on the first one, and I just ran through all three just because that thing, like the Jar of Souls event, gets you a ton of experience. It's like plus 1,000 experience, not counting what you get from massacre bonuses and the actual kills of the event.
Alrighty. Well, yeah. I mean, randomization definitely a hefty part of the game, and the early stages are somewhat linear, but hopefully our explanation and discussion about how the dungeons are randomized and those pockets of randomization on the outdoor areas will alleviate any concerns. And again, the other thing to realize is that this is still the early stage of the game. We really can't make this judgment call. I mean, we're only in a third of Act 1. Bashok said, later in Act 1 and specifically in Act 2, things start to really open up, and that's something that we're really not going to know until release. So we can complain all we want, but it's not going to do much good. So. All right, well, let's move on to the poll right now. First, we'll go into the recap of last week's poll, and then we'll have Tyler bring you guys up to date on this week's poll. So last week, we asked you guys what you thought about the recent delay in the Diablo 3 release date. Specifically, there was note of the fact that, yes, it is getting pushed back to early 2012, and, well, it seems like people were rather salty. Coming in first place with almost 50% of the votes. Sucks having to wait. People aren't too thrilled with the fact that we have to wait a little while longer. Everyone, myself included, was really hoping for a Christmas release, but doesn't really happen. Second place with 28% of the votes saying glad they're taking their time. And actually, that's what I ended up voting for. As much as it does suck waiting, I am glad that they're trying to get it right.
I actually voted for that too. Sorry.
And then, hilariously enough, in third place with 13% of the votes was release the damn game buggy, patch it later, just like Microsoft. That's an interesting approach. I don't know how that would live up to the Blizzard standard of doing things. So they're certainly not going to. And then we had right behind that, excited to have a longer beta. God, I can't believe anyone voted for that. But that must be people who aren't in and are still waiting to get in. And then lastly, in fifth place, we do have 4% of the votes saying I don't really care. So there you go. All right, so Tyler, how about this week's poll? What are people going to be voting on this week?
Basically, we're going to have people voting on the randomization that we just talked about. I know a lot of people out there haven't gotten their chance to play it and actually experience it themselves, but hopefully through this conversation and watching your video that they'll understand kind of how it works. The options are going to be that the amount of randomization is perfect for Diablo. There's little pockets of random, but other areas are set. Other people might vote that they would love more randomized areas, more, different turns in the dungeons and everything like that. There's also the entire game should be randomized. No static areas, nothing. Every time you play the game is completely different.
You start the game in Act 4.
You start in Act 4, it's random. The fourth option is going to be that there's too much randomization, and finally that some people just might not want any randomization. A lot of people who play action games are used to, going on the straight path, knowing exactly where to go, and maybe some people out there want that.
Yeah, and that's funny because many, many, many RPGs are like that. I would say a good majority of them are very linear. So the fact that we even have any randomization, quit bitching. All right. So if you guys want to vote for this week's poll, head on over to DiabloFans.com, log into your account, and you can vote for the poll. All right. So next, as always, we're gonna actually be wrapping things up with some user questions, and I do believe that I did pose a little
you did.
post for questions because trying to read through that stream chat, it's usually just nothing but trolls. So all right, so let's take a quick look here, see if we have any good questions concerning
I got one.
All right,
it's actually like a two-parter. Edward wants to know when we encounter the other artisans, the jeweler and the mystic, and I'm guessing when we encounter the other followers, the scoundrel and the enchantress. Maybe you can help me out with this, Tyler. I don't think we really know, other than the fact that it's going to be Act 1, or not Act 1, sorry, normal, and before the end of normal, obviously. So that way we can take advantage of these followers and artisans throughout normal, because the original plan for the followers was that they were only going to be viable in normal.
Yeah, I believe so. For the artisans, I think the last bit of information that we had was that the last one that we will get will be at the beginning of Act 2, I want to say. So we'll get one more at the end of Act 1 and then one at the beginning of Act 2, which I would assume would probably be the jeweler, just because there's not much. I guess I don't know. Maybe the mystic, because we don't have runes or anything else anyway until Act 2. The followers, I guess I couldn't say one way or the other, but yeah, I would assume it's fairly soon, because as of right now you only get to use them through normal, so there's no reason to pull those back from when you get them.
On that note, there are some level 53 required follower skill or items. Sorry, so I mean that puts us in early to mid hell.
Maybe they've changed their philosophy on the follower system. Maybe it'll last longer for people. So
I remember when we were at the press event, Jay Wilson had said that he noticed Bashiok posted saying that followers are only going to be viable and normal, and somebody replied saying challenge accepted, and he thought that was the sickest thing in the world. So I guess that he was talking about how they might potentially change that, but we really didn't get any kind of confirmation. Kind of popped up on the item database. I'm sorry, Tyler. I keep cutting you off. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. There was talk. I don't remember who said it or when it was said, but something along the lines of that they were trying out to see if followers could go through Nightmare in Hell, and basically how it would work is you would sacrifice your passive. So instead of passive like that gives you 10% mana per health globe, it gives your follower, some additional bonus to help them stay alive. So if you choose and you really want those people with you, you can, and they'll be viable, but obviously you're sacrificing part of your own power since you have two players now.
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting. All right, I've got another question here. We'll probably answer about one or two more before we skedaddle here. Edward asking, do you guys expect any big news at BlizzCon that's Diablo 3 related? I don't think the release date will be possible, but what do you guys think? Maybe a collector's edition. Well, in all honesty, I was expecting a release date in collector's edition, but since the game has been pushed back to 2012, I'm actually expecting neither. It'd be great if either thing got brought up, but I don't expect it. As we talked about earlier, Bashiok mentioned that they may possibly be talking more in depth about runestones because they're still kind of playing around with how that's going to work. Do either of you think that we're going to be hearing about a release date or collector's edition?
We got to hear about it sometime. I mean, they have to tell us about the release date during the beta, because they have to allow us to pre-order and early enough to where we can. To where the point where we can get it.
But I mean, do you really think that since they just last week pushed the game back to 2012, that 3 weeks from now they'll be ready to give us a release date? I don't know.
I mean, it's possible.
I don't know.
I mean, my understanding of why they're doing this, why they're pushing it back to 2012, is because they have a lot of work left on the systems. They just revamped, 3 of the classes' entire skill sets. Sorry. Now they changed how the runestone system works, or they're testing it because they're not exactly sure just yet. It seems like they're still working on how followers are going to work in the game. So I mean, there's still seems like there's quite a bit of work left to either complete or finish QAing. So I don't know. maybe they have this stuff all planned out, and maybe the end of October they're gonna tell us, hey, we're releasing the game February 1st.
All right. Well, how about this? Since I think you're incredibly wrong, I'm gonna give you if they give us the release date, if they give us the release date at BlizzCon, I will give you my second rune that I find in the game. I already owe my first rune to Blazer in the Diablo 3 forums because I was wrong about the closed beta start date. So I already owe someone else my first rune, but you will get my second rune if they announce it, and I want your first rune if they don't.
All right, fine.
Ha! Great. All right. So I'll get my rune back now. Yeah. All right. I don't know. Let's see. Did you guys grab another question?
David wants to know if there's going to be add-on support in Diablo 3, and the simple answer to that is no. The long answer to that is no. Blizzard doesn't want them.
Yeah, it seems like something that they've basically said that they're avoiding doing that. So, and I guess one more. I have a question here asking what we think. When beta keys are going to be released, when the waves are going. That nobody knows.
Soon. Soon TM.
That's just something that they're kind of just randomly doing. So we really have no way of knowing for sure when those keys are going. But, I think that's going to do it. And people wondering about keys from us, that's something else we're still waiting on. We have to see if we get any for the community to give away. And once it happens, we'll let everyone know. But thanks, guys, for hanging out with us. Tyler's got stuff to do. I got stuff to do. Kevin's got to go back to bed. So I think we're going to be wrapping up this podcast here. But as always, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this week's podcast. I had a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. This was a good one. All right, so for Tyler, for Kevin, this has been Dennis. We'll see you guys next time.
Take it easy, guys.
Talk to you later.
All right, Kevin, go back to sleep.
It's too late for that now, man. It's noon.
Oh, it's noon.
And now I'm awake.
Yeah.
You can't talk about Diablo and then tell me to go back to sleep. I don't think it just doesn't work like that.
All right, then go get some breakfast.
That I do need to do.
You don't eat when you wake up. It's terrible for you.
I woke up this morning, brushed my teeth, and jumped on my computer.
God, you're such an unhealthy gamer.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting for your Healthy Gamer series. When's that?
It's top secret. We're still